RAF Fighter Command Operations Room at Uxbridge. On the plotting table, grease-penciled tracks thickened. 182 German bombers, 400 plus escort fighters. Luftwaffe Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring had assured Hitler weeks earlier that Britain was one last push from collapse. His pilots, like Major Adolf Galland of JG-26, believed the RAF was spent, citing over 1,000 RAF losses since July, yet British aircraft continued launching. Contrary to Luftwaffe intelligence, Britain's fighter reserve was not empty. It had forward emergency strips, decoy airfields known as Q sites, and dispersed grass runways, never identified in German reconnaissance reports. Munition Ledger RAE 4112 confirmed. 14 new dispersal sites operational by 10 September. Aircraft Production Ledger from the Ministry of Aircraft Production for August 1940 recorded 496 Hurricanes and Spitfires delivered that month, exceeding Luftwaffe estimates by more than 40%. A clipped radio log broke the calm. Squadron scrambled. From satellite strip. Expectation, RAF collapse. Reality, an unbroken defence network. And the day Germany lost air superiority. At 08:15 on 10th of July 1940, radar operators at RAF Rye reported a formation of 20 plus contacts approaching from Cap Gris-Nez across the English Channel. The first official day of what would be recorded as the Battle of Britain began in low cloud, calm seas, and light wind. The number 11 Group Met log noted, visibility moderate after rain. New intelligence from the Government Code and Cipher School at Bletchley Park confirmed increased Luftwaffe preparation flights from Luftflotte 2 and 3 airfields across occupied France and Belgium. RAF Fighter Command's weekly strength report, filed at Bentley Priory, recorded 640 operational fighters available for deployment. German estimates, compiled by Oberst Josef Beppo Schmidt of the Luftwaffe Intelligence Section, assessed RAF strength at fewer than 300 serviceable aircraft. Unteroffizier Karl Wolf of Jagdgeschwader 51 cleaned the canopy glass of his Messerschmitt Bf 109E3 at an airfield near Calais. His diary entry before takeoff read, "Quiet morning, we expect little." In Kent, leading aircraftman Alfred Jeffreys, ground crew with 32 Squadron at RAF Biggin Hill, wrote in his logbook, "We wait, we fuel, we listen." For staff officers monitoring coastal radar plots that morning, it became the earliest sign that the front was shifting from isolated probing attacks to sustained operations. The discrepancy between German intelligence estimates and actual RAF strength would define the months ahead. The radar returns faded by mid-morning. No major engagement occurred. Both sides recorded routine patrol sorties, but the logs at Bentley Priory showed something else. The defensive grid was fully operational, and German reconnaissance had missed half the defending force. Between 12 and 19th July 1940, RAF Bentley Priory recorded the full alignment of its early warning and fighter control system. Chain, home radar stations along the coast, observer corps posts inland, and sector station plotting rooms formed an integrated network detailed in Air Ministry Order S46344040. This structure formalized the defensive grid that would guide RAF fighters throughout the battle. German reconnaissance reports noted major RAF airfields, Kenley, Biggin Hill, Northolt, Hornchurch, but consistently underestimated the number of dispersal pads and satellite strips. Luftwaffe intelligence photographs identified concrete runways but missed grass landing grounds that required no permanent infrastructure. Daily operational logs from this period show Luftwaffe sortie rates averaging 180 aircraft, rising to 400 by week's end. RAF flew surge responses of 120 to 160 sorties each day. Maintenance teams at RAF Kenley reported average turnaround times of 26 minutes per Hawker Hurricane MKI, refueling, rearming, and basic inspection completed between sorties. Sergeant Tom Neal of 249 Squadron recorded in his logbook that his hands trembled from cold on the control column during high-altitude patrols. Ground crewman Bill Stowe, assigned to 501 Squadron, wrote in a letter home, "We eat standing, no time to sit. The work never stops." Air Vice Marshal Keith Park, commanding No. 11 Group, issued tactical guidance on 17th of July, emphasizing rapid response over formation size. His memo, preserved in the National Archives, stated, "Engage quickly, preserve strength, return for re-engagement." This doctrine shaped RAF operations through the summer. For analysts reviewing post-battle records, the transition from standby to continuous readiness was unmistakable. The system was tested daily, refined constantly, and never allowed to collapse. On 1st of August 1940, Adolf Hitler signed Führer Directive No. 17, recorded in Oberkommando der Wehrmacht archives. The document's objective was clear: destroy the Royal Air Force to prepare the way for Operation Sea Lion, the planned invasion of Britain. In London, Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding confirmed to the Air Ministry that Fighter Command reserves were strained but intact. RAF production ledgers from the Ministry of Aircraft Production showed 496 fighters delivered in July alone, including Supermarine Spitfire (MKI) and Hawker Hurricane (MKI) aircraft. These numbers exceeded pre-war production targets and surpassed German estimates of British manufacturing capacity. Luftwaffe operational strength at the beginning of August stood at approximately 2,700 aircraft, including 1,107 bombers of various types: Heinkel He, 111, Dornier, Do 17, and Junkers, Ju 88. RAF readiness reports listed roughly 1,000 fighters total, but only 640 were recorded as fully operational and available for immediate deployment. British radar operators at Ventnor on the Isle of Wight stood watch in wet wool uniforms, salt air corroding equipment housings. Maintenance logs noted daily repairs to transmitter valves and receiver circuits. German pilots on airfields across the Pas-de-Calais wiped oil residue from Daimler-Benz DB601 engines during pre-flight checks, recording minor mechanical issues in their aircraft logbooks. The directive gave Luftwaffe commanders discretion on timing, but set a clear priority: airfields, aircraft factories, and RAF ground organization. Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring, commanding the Luftwaffe, predicted the campaign would require 4 days of good weather to achieve air superiority. Military planning had entered a phase where miscalculation would cost whole squadrons. The numbers on both sides were documented, but the interpretations differed drastically. 13th of August 1940 marked Adler Tag, Eagle Day, the Luftwaffe's opening mass strike. Weather records from French airfields show fog over the Pas-de-Calais region, delaying formations and disrupting coordination. Some units took off before the postponement order reached them, others waited hours for clearance. The Luftwaffe flew 1,485 sorties that day. RAF Fighter Command recorded approximately 700 scramble operations across No. 11 Group sectors. Combat occurred in waves from morning through late afternoon, concentrated over Kent, Sussex, and the Thames estuary. Losses recorded by both sides: Luftwaffe, 47 aircraft destroyed; RAF, 13 fighters lost, 10 pilots killed. Pilot Officer William Paddy Byrne of 249 Squadron wrote in his diary that evening, "I felt the canopy shake, someone's engine burning behind me." A German radio transcript intercepted and decoded at Bletchley Park recorded a calm phrase when a pilot from JG-26 failed to return: "Er kommt nicht zurück." He is not coming back. Mechanics at RAF Biggin Hill worked through smoke from burning hangars hit during afternoon raids. Station records noted 3 hangars destroyed, fuel storage damaged, and runway cratering that required overnight repair. By dawn on 14th August, the runway was listed as operational again. Oberst Werner Mulders, leading Jagdgeschwader 51, reported in his after-action summary that RAF resistance remained unexpectedly strong. Luftwaffe intelligence had predicted minimal defensive sorties by this stage of the campaign. Record keepers at Bentley Priory noted 13th August as the first day when repair crews could not restore all damaged aircraft within 24 hours. The attrition curve had begun to steepen. Both sides would face this reality in the weeks ahead. From 16 to 18 August, RAF operational diaries recorded what became known as the hardest days. Luftwaffe bombing intensified against sector stations, the nerve centers coordinating fighter response. Weather logs noted scattered cloud, temperatures between 10 and 15 degrees Celsius, and moderate visibility. Bomb damage reports filed during this period listed hits on Kenley, Biggin Hill, Croydon, and Hornchurch. At Kenley, 9 hangars were destroyed on 18th of August. At Biggin Hill, the operations room took a direct hit, forcing controllers to relocate to emergency facilities. RAF losses on 18th. August reached 31 aircraft destroyed. Luftwaffe losses the same day totaled 69 aircraft. The exchange rate favoured the defenders, but the damage to ground infrastructure was severe. Pilot officer Alan Deere crash-landed his Spitfire, serial R6981, at RAF Rochford after combat over the Thames estuary. His combat report, preserved at the Imperial War Museum, described engine failure following cannon damage to the coolant system. He walked away with minor injuries. Corporal Thomas Hemsley, an RAF repair crew supervisor, recorded in his field diary, "Hands shaking, smoke everywhere. We keep turning spanners." His crew worked 18-hour shifts, sleeping under canvas near the flight line. Number 11 group operational logs show that despite airfield damage, squadron readiness rates remained above 70%. Satellite strips and grass landing grounds absorbed displaced aircraft. Fuel and ammunition were redistributed using civilian lorries commandeered under emergency powers regulations. The repair logs from this period revealed steel shortages beginning to affect structural repairs. Each wrecked airframe meant another silent gap on the line. Ground crews cannibalized damaged aircraft to keep others flying. For the first time, Luftwaffe intelligence reports acknowledged that RAF defensive strength had not collapsed as predicted. By late August, the RAF had deployed an extensive network of decoy airfields, Q sites, designed to draw German bombs away from operational stations. Air Ministry Order Q4027, issued in July, authorised construction of 110 decoy installations across southern England. Records from the week of 23rd August show that more than 80 bombs were dropped on decoy sites in Kent and Essex alone. These installations used minimal resources, petrol-soaked rags ignited on timers, wooden frames painted to resemble aircraft, and fake dispersal huts constructed from canvas and scaffolding. William Sansom, a civilian technician assigned to operate decoy flares near Maidstone, provided testimony to the Imperial War Museum after the war. He described lighting controlled fires in sequence to simulate aircraft engine startups and taxiing. Luftwaffe crews, navigating by visual reference at night, targeted the false installations. One decoy crew recorded a fatality during this period. Harry Gill, a Home Guard volunteer, was killed by a delayed action bomb on 25th of August while inspecting damage to a decoy site near Ashford. His name appears in Commonwealth War Graves Commission records. Luftwaffe communiques claimed destruction of an entire squadron during raids on 24th August. Post-war analysis of the target coordinates confirmed the bombs fell on an empty field rigged with dummy aircraft. The actual airfield, 3 kilometers away, remained fully operational. British expenditure on decoy operations, recorded in Ministry of Home Security files, totaled less than $50,000 through September 1940. Luftwaffe bomb tonnage diverted to false targets during the same period was estimated at over 1,200 tons, ordnance that did not reach real infrastructure. The deception network represented a low-cost, high-impact component of Britain's defensive system. The record shows it worked repeatedly. 15th of September 1940, later designated Battle of Britain Day, represented the peak of daylight operations. Number 11 Group flew 520 fighter sorties. The Luftwaffe dispatched approximately 1,120 sorties in 2 major waves. Prime Minister Winston Churchill observed operations from the underground bunker at RAF Uxbridge. He watched WAF plotters move coloured counters across the map table as reports arrived from radar stations and observer corps posts. When Churchill asked Air Vice Marshal Park if any reserves remained, Park replied, "None, sir, all committed." Combat losses recorded for 15th September. Luftwaffe, 56 aircraft destroyed. RAF, 26 fighters, lost squadron leader Brian Kinkham of 92 Squadron noted in his diary the smell of engine coolant leaking from a damaged radiator after combat over London. His Spitfire returned to base with bullet holes through the port wing and fuselage. Flight Sergeant John Ellis, a gunner with 603 Squadron, recorded in his logbook, "We were tired to the bone, still we rose." His ground crews serviced his Hurricane 3 times that day, each turnaround completed in under 30 minutes. Luftwaffe formation leaders reported unexpectedly heavy fighter opposition during both waves. German operational summaries filed that evening expressed confusion over continued RAF resistance. Intelligence estimates had predicted Fighter Command would be unable to mount more than 300 sorties per day by mid-September. When formation after formation appeared on British radar screens throughout the day, staff officers at Bentley Priory realised that endurance, organisational, logistical and human, would now decide the outcome. The numbers showed an air force that had not broken. 2 days later, Hitler postponed Operation Sea Lion indefinitely. In the 2 weeks following 15th of September, RAF operational capacity became undeniable. Luftwaffe reconnaissance flights, analysed post-war, show repeated attempts to photograph airfields across southern England. What German analysts saw contradicted their intelligence assessments. Aircraft continued operating from fields previously reported as destroyed. Advanced landing grounds at Lashenden, Lympne and Gravesend rotated active use throughout late September. Air Ministry memo AMCV SEPT detailed rotating airfield cycles, a system where squadrons moved between primary stations, satellite strips, and emergency grass fields to avoid concentrated bombing and maintain operational tempo. A ground crewman's diary, preserved anonymously in RAF museum archives, recorded, "We slept under wings, no day off since July, spanners in hand before dawn, still working past midnight, the aircraft keep flying." By 30th September, Fighter Command still fielded over 700 operational fighters, a figure that shocked German intelligence when confirmed through ultra-intercepts of Luftwaffe communications. One decoded message from a German sector commander stated, "British fighter opposition remains at strength inconsistent with reported losses." Production records explain part of the mystery. Lord Beaverbrook's Ministry of Aircraft Production delivered 496 new fighters in August, and 467 in September. Civilian repair organisation workshops returned an additional 160 fighters to operational status in September alone. These numbers were never accurately estimated by German intelligence. RAF maintenance logs from this period show Rolls-Royce Merlin engines averaging 150 hours of combat service life before requiring replacement, half the peacetime standard, but sufficient to maintain sortie rates. Engine production exceeded airframe production by 20%, ensuring spares remained available. The dispersed airfield network, combined with sustained production and rapid repair, created a defensive system that absorbed losses and continued functioning. The Luftwaffe had planned to destroy fixed installations. They had not planned for a mobile, adaptive network. On 12 October 1940, Adolf Hitler formally postponed Operation Sea Lion. Führer Directive No. 16, authorizing preparation for the invasion of Britain, was shelved indefinitely. The decision followed weeks of escalating Luftwaffe losses and the persistent failure to achieve air superiority. General Feldmarschall Hugo Sperler, commanding Luftflotte 3, submitted a report to Oberkommando der Wehrmacht acknowledging that daylight bomber operations over Britain had become unsustainable without prohibitive losses. His assessment, filed in OKW records, noted, "Enemy fighter defense remains organized and effective. Cumulative losses from July through October, Luftwaffe, approximately 1,733 aircraft, destroyed RAF Fighter Command, approximately 187 fighters lost." The exchange appeared nearly even, but production capacity told a different story. British factories had outproduced German estimates consistently. German bombers lost included experienced crews that took months to replace. RAF pilot losses, though severe, were partially offset by Commonwealth and foreign volunteers joining squadrons. Civilian casualties in Britain by October exceeded 8,000 killed by bombing. Commonwealth War Graves Commission records include Sergeant Bernard Jennings of 610 Squadron, killed on 13th August when his Hurricane crashed following combat damage. His final logbook entry read, "Engine rough at climb, will retest." A German staff officer's diary, captured and translated post-war, included an entry dated 10th of October. "We underestimated their airfields. We underestimated their production. We underestimated their will." The Luftwaffe shifted to night bombing operations, the Blitz, which would continue through May 1941. But the strategic objective of destroying fighter command to enable invasion had failed. The daylight battle was over. Britain had not defeated the Luftwaffe. It had endured long enough to make invasion impossible. The difference was documented in production figures, dispersal networks, and the simple fact of continued resistance. Post-war interviews with RAF pilots, ground crew, and decoy operators confirmed what archives had already documented. The Battle of Britain was won through organisation, production, and endurance as much as through combat skill. Squadron leader Brian Kincombe, who survived the battle, reflected in later years on the nature of that summer. His memoir, published in 1999, described fatigue so complete that pilots slept in their cockpits between sorties. He wrote, "We were not heroes. We were simply there, and we kept going because the alternative was unthinkable." Pilot officer Alan Deere, the New Zealand pilot who crash-landed on 18th August, continued flying through the war and retired as an air commodore. In his 1959 memoir, 9 Lives, he credited ground crews and radar operators as much as pilots for the defence of Britain. Major Adolf Galland, the German fighter ace who flew throughout the battle, wrote in his post-war memoir, "The first and the last," of his growing frustration during September 1940. He described watching British fighters continue to appear despite intelligence reports of RAF collapse. His account confirms what British records showed. German intelligence never grasped the scale of Britain's dispersal network. A photograph recovered in 1978 from a crashed Hurricane cockpit showed a family portrait pinned beside the instrument panel. The pilot's name was not recorded, but the image itself became part of the Imperial War Museum collection, a silent reminder of the personal stakes behind every sortie. An archival RAF log entry from 14th of September 1940 reads simply, "Secondary strip operational. It is a bureaucratic notation in faded ink, recording routine administrative detail, but those three words encapsulate a nation's resistance. Britain endured because it could land, refuel, and rise again, where the enemy saw only grass. The Luftwaffe planned to destroy runways. They never planned for fields that did not appear on maps.